In this video, we're going to take a look at the Ifs function, IFS, which is multiple if conditions. We're going to look at the Ifs function in Microsoft Excel, and we're also going to look at the TEXTJOIN function. So we're going to learn about two really important functions, and we're going to use these in building this random name generator where random names are randomly generated. So we're going to see how to use both those functions here in this video, Ifs and TEXTJOIN. Let's get to it. So here I am in the random name generator, and what we're going to do in this video is we're going to join all of this text together. And so we're going to take the title, the first name, the last name, and the credential, and use TEXTJOIN to join all that text together right here and put their name here. But not everybody's going to have all four of these. Some people will just have three. They'll have a title, a first name, and a last name. So we'll join all of that together and put it here. And some people will just have a first and last name. So we'll use TEXTJOIN to join that together and put it there. So we're going to have three different scenarios, and we're going to use the Ifs function to determine whether we're joining all four, or just joining three, or just joining two. And so to understand how to do that, I want to teach you about the TEXTJOIN function, and I also want to teach you about the Ifs function, because the Ifs function is going to determine if we do all four, or just three, or just two. It's going to test different conditions and determine what we're joining together. And so to learn about the text functions and the Ifs functions, I want to come in here and show you the difference between CONCAT and TEXTJOIN. So you can see here up at the top of this spreadsheet, I have these words, each in a different cell, another day in paradise. And when I use CONCAT, it joins all of those words together without any delimiters or any spaces between the words. But when I use TEXTJOIN, I could place a delimiter between each of these words. So you can see here in the formula, and I'm going to use a shortcut key to go into formula view here. And that show formulas button is right here on the formulas ribbon. And you can see the shortcut key is Control backtick. So I could also click it right here, but I could also use the keyboard shortcut Control backtick, and that shows me all of my formulas. And here TEXTJOIN takes this delimiter right there. So if I click in there, it shows me the syntax for TEXTJOIN. Here's the function TEXTJOIN. In this first argument, the first thing I have to give to the TEXTJOIN function is some sort of a delimiter. And so I use this delimiter of a dash. I could have also used any delimiter. I could have used a star. And so with a star, this is what this looks like right there, another day in paradise. And if I wanted to just use a space, I could just come in here, I could double click, I could change that star to a space like that. I could press enter and then go back into values view, not formulas view, and there it shows me another day in paradise with the delimiter of a space between each word. So the main takeaway from this is the difference between CONCAT and TEXTJOIN is that CONCAT doesn't automatically insert a delimiter, and TEXTJOIN will allow you to put a delimiter between each word. So we're going to use TEXTJOIN as we join these different parts of people's names together and use a delimiter of a space. The next thing I want you to learn about, and the next thing we need to know, is how to use the Ifs function. Because we're going to have to use the Ifs function to determine whether or not we're joining four things, or three things, or two things together. And so this is the way the Ifs function works. I'm going to use Control backtick to reveal this formula right here. And with this formula showing right here, this function showing right here, we can see that the Ifs function is testing different conditions. So here's the syntax. Ifs logical test. So here's our first logical test. Is B2 equal to C2? So it's this cell right here equal to this cell right here. And if that is true, and you can see the syntax got highlighted there, what is the value that's returned? If true, it's going to return a -1. Okay, and then here's our next test. And so we could just keep putting in these logical tests. We have logical test 1, we have logical test 2, we have logical test 3, we have the value returned if logical test 1 is true, we have the value returned if the logical test 2 is true, we have the value returned if logical test 3 is true. And so each of these is just checking those. And the way the Ifs function works is when it hits the first logical test that's true, it returns that value and then stops. It doesn't do anything else after that. So this is what I want you to see as we run this. I'm going to go back into values view, and here where it's showing -1, it's because this is equal to that, so it stops. So if this number right here wasn't 42, if we just made that 0, it's going to be 42 equal to 0. That's going to be false. And then it'll go 43 equal to 43. That will be true. So it's going to return a -1 here as soon as I press enter and make that a 0. So I'm going to press enter right now, and we'll see we'll see number 2, not -2. We'll see number 2 appear right there. So here we go. Enter. number 2. And then if this one wasn't true, and I'll make this one a 0, so we'll do that, it's going to show us number 3. But if I made that 42 again, it'll show us number 1. If I made this 43, it's not going to show us number 2, because as soon as it finds one that's true, in the order that it's entered right here, found this one is true, so it returns that value and then it stops. So that's how the ifs function works. You want to think about that when you're using ifs, because you want to like evaluate the conditions in the order that you that makes sense for whatever scenario you're working with. All right, so that's how ifs works. That's how text join works. Now let's see them in action. So over here, I'm going to have some random numbers. I'm going to do those random numbers like this, and these will be the conditions that I test. So I did equals rand parens. And the conditions that I'm going to test is I'm going to see if this number here is less than that number. And if that's true, we're going to give the people a title. So you can see this person right here has a title. And then we're also going to do this over here. And if this number is less than that number and this number is less than that number here, right, we will also give them a credential if both of these numbers are less than both of those respective numbers. So I'm just going to copy this down and put it over the next 2 rows. Actually, I'll get rid of these rows. We'll just work on the first row right there first. All right, so now let's I could press F9 and we could see this regenerating. And so here, this number is less than that number, so they got a title, but this number is greater than that number, so they didn't get a credential. And then again, same thing, they got a title, but no credential. And then here, they're both greater than the test number, so they just got the first and last name, no title and no credential. And then finally here, we have this number is less than this number, and this number is less than that number, so they got a title, first and last name, and a credential. So we need to create those 3 scenarios using ifs and check for each of those situations, and then use text join to join together the correct amount of words, elements, to build their name. So I'm going to go in here and go ifs. I'm going to choose that function. The first logical test is going to be multiple criteria, so I'm going to use and. And the first logical test there is going to be, is this number less than this one right here? And I'm going to press F4 to make that an absolute reference. And then the second logical test will be, is that one less than this one right here? And again, I'm going to press F4 to make that an absolute reference. And then what value do I want returned if true? I'm going to do a text join, and I'm going to have a space for a delimiter. And then this here, it's asking me, do I want to ignore empty cells? That doesn't, it isn't relevant for our situation right now, so I'm just going to say true. And then what do I want to join together? I want to join together these 4 cells right there. And then that's going to be the end of my first part of the ifs function. I did the logical test and I had the value if true. Now I'm ready for the next logical test, so I'm going to hit a comma, and you'll see that I'm now working on the second logical test right there. And the second logical test will just be for the title. Is this one here less than this one here? It's a lot. And if that's true, then I'm going to do another text join, and I'm going to join together with a delimiter of a space and ignore empty space is true, and I'm going to join together just these first 3 right there. And so now I have those, and so that's the end of my second one, and now I'm ready for my third logical test. And so for this last one, if the first logical test right here was not true, right, that's the first logical test right there, and then if the next logical test right here was not true, for this final logical test, I'm just going to put in the word true, the value true, that's a key word, and so that will automatically evaluate as true, and I'm going to do a text join, and the delimiter is going to be a space again, and then I'm going to have a true for ignoring empty cells, and then the text I'm going to join together is just going to be the first and the last name, and I'm going to put an ending parenthesis on that, and then I'm all done with this function here. So I'll do one more ending parenthesis, and I knew that I needed one more because I'm still seeing this tooltip for the function syntax right there. And before that previous one, I was seeing the tooltip for the text join function. So when I did that ending parenthesis, right, it gave me the syntax for the ifs function, the tooltip there for the ifs function syntax, and then one more and they all go away. That means I've got the right number of parentheses there. Now I'm just going to press enter, and it's all working. It's all working. It's all working, right? Zoe Robinson, just first and last. Miss Ella Moore, there's a title, first and last. And then finally we have here Miss Aubrey White, MBA. I love it. All right, Mrs. Aubrey White, MBA. And so it got the title, first and last name, and the credential. In the next video that I make for this YouTube channel, we're gonna finish up our random name generator, and we're gonna automatically generate an email address, and we're gonna do that using the CONCAT function. So we're gonna see an additional text function, the CONCAT function, the lower function, the ran between function, and the XLOOKUP function, nesting all those functions together to randomly generate an email. So if you wanna see that video, it's a great video. Hit that subscribe button and toggle that little bell so you'll be notified when that video comes out. In addition, if there's anything else you want to learn about Microsoft Excel or all of technology, leave a little note in the comments area. I read those comments and then I use those suggestions to help generate ideas for which videos I'm going to make next. As always, it was a pleasure and I look forward to seeing you next time.